Good morning, students. So, today I want to give you a brief idea on how to actually write down a character sketch. Say, for instance, in the portrait of a lady, we have the character sketch of the author's grandmother. So, here, actually, this has been requested by many of you all, many of the students. They have requested me that I should show them how to approach or how to write down a 5-mark question. And since this question comes very frequently, so I decided like it would be good if I can tell you, or rather show you how actually, or what should be your approach towards writing down a 5-mark answer. So see, here I have written down, when you write down any character sketch, the examiner or whoever is setting the question, he is inquisitive enough to know how much you have actually understood about the character in that respective text or lesson. He is not interested, or he or she is not interested in knowing the or learning the entire lesson. So many of you, what you do, you write down the entire story. It becomes more of a storytelling than writing down a character sketch. So as you can see here, any character sketch, it should begin with an introduction to the story from where the character belongs. Okay, for example, this is only an example. You can have your own way of introducing. So here I have written, Khushwant Singh in his The Portrait of a Lady provides his reader with a brief account of his relationship with his grandmother, who is no more in this world, and through it a brief pen picture of this lady within quotation, because I want to emphasize, or I want to show to the examiner that the lady here is none but the grandmother. Also, I'm throwing light on how or what the story is all about, that it is about an account of his relationship with his grandmother. And through that discussion, through that narrative, what we come to see is a brief pen picture of the lady, that is the grandmother. Okay, now another very important thing you have to remember is that when you write a 5-mark question, it should be properly separated in paragraphs. Okay, many of you, what you do, you know everything, you write down everything, but then you write down in just one paragraph, which looks so bad. Okay, it's not at all organized. So what you do, after you introduce, you change the paragraph, and then you start describing or start the description of the character. So what are the things that you should describe or focus? You should focus on the physical attributes, which is the lesser quality. And as we have seen, physical attributes, if I talk about the physical attributes, you have seen that the grandmother, the author's grandmother, she did not have very superior qualities or positive qualities. She was very short, not tall. She was fat, not thin. She was slightly bent, okay, not stout. She was wrinkled, okay, her face was covered in wrinkles, and her locks were silver. That means she had gray strands of hair. She was old, very old. Okay, now all these shows a negative aspect about her physical appearance. She is not at all good looking. But here we can write down that though she was not good looking, she had other qualities which reflect the bright side or positive side of the grandmother, right? So that way you begin your description. Then again you change the paragraph, because you have already talked about the negative qualities, about her physical attributes. Now you have to focus on the positive qualities, her nature, and so on. Okay, so there are different qualities that we can understand or we can come across while discussing the author's grandmother. Some of these qualities I have discussed here. First quality is that her loving and compassionate nature. So how we come to know that she was a loving person, she was a compassionate person, that she took complete care of Khushwant Singh as a child. that she taught him all the good values, whatever good values she could. So this shows that she had a loving and compassionate nature. She brought up the grandson just like any other parent, okay, raising him up from the bed, dressing him, taking him to school, feeding him, bringing him back from school. She did not leave the child alone for a single second. That shows how compassionate she was. And even when she comes to the city to live in the city, there also we find her, breaking down her. She is very sorry that she could not help him with the lessons. And when she was isolated, when she was separated, then also she was constantly worried about the well-being of the grandson. So all this shows that she had a loving and compassionate nature. Next is religious person. She was a very, very religious person, and we come to know that very well because we have always seen her praying, her fingers busy telling on the beads of rosary, and her mind always lost in prayer. She would be praying inaudibly without disturbing others. She would be constantly chanting the prayers. Whenever she took the grandson to school, she would be sitting in the Gurudwara, in the temple, and reading the scriptures. It is possibly because of the religion that she got the inner strength to endure all that she came across. So, religious quality is another important quality that you have to talk about. Her affectionate nature towards animals, that is another plus point of the grandmother. So, we have seen that in the village also she used to feed the stray dogs who are not actually cared for. And also, after coming to the city, she starts feeding the sparrows. So, feeding the village dogs and feeding the sparrows, all this shows that she did not only worry, or she was not only concerned about her grandson, but also she was affectionate towards the dumb creatures, towards the animals, right? Now, another quality that comes to our mind is her strong willed and determined nature. It is seen that the grandmother stood by her decisions all the time. She was resolute and firm, and she was able to curb her emotions. This is one quality that makes her indeed a lady. She did not break down easily. She was very strong, very independent thinking, and she was determined to take her decisions on her own. So once she is isolated from the grandson, she does not simply sit down in a corner and break down or cry. Rather, she stood by her decision, accepted it practically, and she decided to invest her time and energy in a positive way. Okay, how? By keeping herself busy doing different kind of activities, right? Then, talking about her traditional outlook, yes, indeed, she was a very traditional woman who held views, traditional views about education, and it can be seen that she loved the education that was provided in the village school, because it was a mixture of bookish knowledge as well as about religion and spiritual learning. Whereas in the modern school, in the city school, the education was specially based on Western science and learning. And the thing that she disliked about the city school is that it had music lessons and also no teaching on religion or scriptures, something that she did not approve, right? Okay. Another very important quality, strong and fearless. She was strong and fearless. How do you come to know that? She was courageous, that she was able to bring up the grandson single-handedly in the village. She had no one by her side, and being an old lady, she was able to raise the grandson single-handedly. This is also one very, very important quality. Next, she was able to accept her seclusion with resignation, without fighting, without protesting. She had accepted her isolation. And even during her death, we can see her fearless nature. She did not fear death. The other members of the family, they were worried, they were just grieving, and they did not want to leave the grandmother alone. But then she was very practical enough She understood that death is a part of human life and she accepted her death as calmly as life. So, all these qualities show her in a very bright light. There are more qualities. If you want, you can add more, and then change of paragraph again, end with a concluding paragraph. You should always end your 5 mark questions or 5 mark answers with a concluding paragraph, because this is a proper way to actually sum up, right? So in the first, just like we started the answer in a very organized manner, beginning with an introduction, so also we have to end up or wrap up with a conclusion. So for example, you end by saying, thus, from the narrative, we can identify the author's grandmother as a strong person with a humble and compassionate soul, in whose life religion was the prime driving force. And you can add a few more details if you want. Indeed, we can also write that yes, because of these qualities, she has been compared with a winter landscape in the mountains, and it also totally justifies the title of the lesson. Okay, so this much for today. I hope this will be helpful for you. You will be able to write down your 5 mark answers from now onwards. Thank you very much.